Call to order the meeting for July, oh gosh, what is the date? July 10th, 2025 of the Human Relations Commission. And if you please help us take roll call.
Of course. Chair Stimler.
Here.
Vice Chair Kraus. Commissioner Eberly. Here. Commissioner Causey. Here. Commissioner Barr.
Here.
Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Carnum. For the record, 5 present.
Great, thank you. Then we shall begin. We will start with public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So these are items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone here to make public comment on items not on the agenda today?
Chair, we have no requests to speak and no hands are raised for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, great. Then are there any agenda changes, additions, or deletions? Commissioners? Nothing there either? Then I think we can go ahead and approve the minutes for the June 12th, 2025 Human Relations. Vice Chair Kraus moves to approve the minutes. Can we get a second?
I second.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Barr. Then can we get a vote on the approval of the minutes?
And for the record, Commissioner Carnum joined us, so he'll be in on the vote.
Great, fantastic.
Commissioner Barr.
Yes.
Commissioner Causey. Yes. Commissioner Eberly. Aye. Commissioner Carnum.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kraus.
Yes.
Chair Stimler.
Yes.
For the record, the motion carries 5-0 or 6-0-1. Commissioner Shea absent for the vote.
Great, thank you. Then we will move to our first and only business item of the day. Just to give, I know we have a lot of people here for public comment, just to give you a sense of when that will happen. Public comment will happen after a couple of things. First, we'll hear from the city staff and they will provide the presentation on the religious tolerance training. Afterwards, the commissioners will ask any clarifying questions, but we will hold off on a meaty discussion at that point. Then we'll move to public comment. And at that point, if you haven't already, please put your names in the basket for public comment, or during that time, you can raise your hand if you're on Zoom for public comment. After public comment, the HRC will then have a discussion. So that will be the way that works this afternoon. All right, so before we begin with the city staff presentation, I just really wanted to thank everyone who is here to discuss the anti-Semitism and anti-Islamophobia training. Thank you especially to the staff who have been meeting with stakeholders and vendors to create this training. Mayor Lang is with us today as a matter of standard protocol because our normal liaison, Council Member Stone, is traveling as the City Council is not in session and it is now summer break. The mayor is primarily here to observe our deliberation and as context for future council discussions. A little context on why we're having this meeting today. In deciding whether to have a meeting to review the training, which is somewhat unusual, most city staff and council trainings are not subject to a Human Relations Commission meeting. But we decided to do this because we weighed the benefits of open discussion, transparency, and feedback against the very high likelihood of derogatory and potentially hateful comments that might demonstrate exactly the kind of intolerance we are hoping to minimize through the training. Everyone here took a risk of feeling uncomfortable in order to be present for this community and our efforts. So thank you. This is a free speech space and we will need to allow opinions, even those that may seem hateful, unless they pose a specific threat. But know that we are grateful to those who showed up with the intent of sowing seeds of peace and understanding and inclusion in our city. I want to share that we have chosen vendors from both our Jewish and Muslim communities to lead this training. And I will say that we are in the final stages of of designing the actual training itself, but the cement is still wet. The vendors are not here in the meeting tonight, but they will review the recordings of this meeting, and that will be a subject of a future discussion with city staff and the vendors. So your feedback will be heard and taken into consideration. And finally, I want to reiterate the intent of the training. The training was part of a recommendation derived from the Human Relations Commission's listening sessions with both our Muslim and our Jewish, Muslim, Arab, and Palestinian Israeli communities that began in 2023. And it was also recommended and approved by the City Council. The intent is not to change anyone's opinion on foreign affairs, which would be out of scope for this training. Our intent is to help prepare city staff, council, and commissioners to understand the lived experiences of our Jewish, Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, and Israeli communities. And so that as they serve and interact with Palo Alto residents, they can do so with greater empathy and understanding. And with that, I will hand it over to our city staff to walk us through the process of designing and the final outline of the training. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Stimler, and good evening, Human Relations Commission. My name is Chantel Cotton Gaines. I'm the Deputy City Manager, and I have with me Mr. Kojo Pierce, our Wellness and Belonging Project Manager. The chair gave such a great summary of the details, so our brief presentation will just add a little more information to that, and then we can answer questions. I will emphasize that we have the scope of work from the proposed trainers. If there are deep questions about some of the specifics on that, we will definitely record those, as we may not be able to address every single one of those questions. So with that, next slide, please. So we're happy to make this presentation regarding an opportunity for training for our city staff, our boards and commissions, as well as the city council. We will go over again in a couple of slides the recommendation that came from the HRC and the council. But really, we are always excited to have our staff really expand their knowledge and understanding of issues that are really relevant to our communities. And so the recommendation this evening is that the HRC review and provide feedback on the scope of the upcoming training for those follow-up steps that Chair Stimler discussed. Mr. Pierce can give a brief overview of just some of the steps to date, just adding on to what Chair Stimler already shared. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Chantel. I'll be providing an overview of the steps we've taken for the process so far, as far as selecting a vendor for the training. So first, we started with the listening sessions. The HRC had its first listening sessions late 2023 and early 2024. February 8th, 2024 was when the HRC discussed recommendations. After these listening sessions, the city then advanced our equity action plan in April 2024. Which includes 28 action items related to training, recruitment, and a variety of other topics. Council confirmed HRC recommendation on August 19, 2024. Staff also received a lot of recommendations as far as our training options from community members and stakeholders, and we did our research to explore these options as well. Today, we would like to have a discussion and also get feedback on the scope of these trainings. Next slide, please. A friendly reminder, we would like to go over the council's confirmed HRC recommendation, which is to direct staff to implement training regarding religious tolerance, anti-discrimination as part of its DEI training for city employees and boards and commissions. Over to you, Chantel.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So some of the high-level overview of the training itself, and also in the packet, there is a description that came from the two trainers working together on the scope. And attachment A in the staff report goes through as well bullet points of what the sections of the training are. So I will actually just refer to that for those deeper diving in. But in terms of the overview, the trainers recommended are the Islamic Network Group, also known as ING, and Project Shema. And this is recommended as a joint panel between the two organizations as an opportunity to have multiple perspectives reflected in the conversation and to hopefully be able to reflect some of the perspectives that we have read about through the summaries of the listening sessions and things that we've heard as well. The training is about 2 hours total, so 120 minutes. The overall scope is equipping city staff and leadership with the knowledge and tools to better understand and serve our Muslim, Arab, and Jewish communities to increase awareness for these topics within the context of our city services and work. The target audience by the council recommendation is city staff, city council, and board and commission members. At this time, it's not a broader training for members of the public. That is a possibility in the future, depending on how the training goes. But right now, we're just implementing the city council recommendation, which is this target audience. The training is voluntary. The trainers recommended an in-person training. And lastly, it will not be recorded. In our experience with other trainings that we're doing in the equity and inclusion space, it just allows people to feel more comfortable really engaging in the topics, asking questions, et cetera. Typically, those sessions are not recorded in any of the trainings that we've done. The session cost is about $10,000 plus some reimbursable travel, and that is split between the organizations. Next slide. So just a summary, we really are here for feedback today about the scope, about any other aspects of this training so that we can incorporate those things into the training that we would do. As Mr. Pierce referenced, our next step would be to refine the scope with the trainers, as well as then scheduling the actual training for sometime this fall for our staff based on other trainings on calendar for staff and council and boards and commissions. And the last slide is just Mr. Pierce's contact information so that that is available for anyone who would like to email us as well. So that concludes our staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the hard work you've done putting together this training. This next section, if the commissioners would have any clarifying questions about the training itself, there is also a staff report as well as an outline of the content. So if folks have questions around those, please, yeah, that would be a good time to chime in. Vice Chair Kraus?
I just want to thank the staff for hearing us and hearing the communities. We started this journey about almost 2 years ago. And it's been a long and arduous journey, but you heard us. And for that, I am grateful. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions before we proceed?
Quick question. Why weren't the vendors included in this discussion?
Thank you for the question. We typically wouldn't bring the vendors at this point in the process. Just sort of, we are able to take the feedback and share it with them and sort of discuss how to refine the scope in that kind of way.
Great, thank you so much.
Also, I would say, we don't have a contract with them yet, correct?
Correct.
No. Anyone else before we proceed to public comment? All right, then we will proceed to public comment. How many folks do we have online and who've submitted requests?
We have 15 requests to speak.
Okay, we did budget an hour, so I think we can go ahead and give everybody the full 3 minutes. I know that's a lot of public comment, but really that is one of the major purposes is to really hear from our community and get the feedback that we can bring back to the vendors as we line up the content. So thank you so much for everyone who is here. Please be patient as it will be a long session of public comment. But with that, I think we can go ahead and, one other thing I will say is that I will be pretty strict about the 3 minutes. It's a lot of time to, if you can condense your thoughts. And secondly, I'm going to be pretty strict about staying on topic. So please stay on topic, the topic of which is the training of our religious tolerance training. Thank you.
Our first speaker is Ben L., followed by Elena.
Thank you very much. My name is Ben Linder. I am a Palo Alto resident. I am Jewish, and I'm also an Israeli-born American. I am the local co-chair of the J Street Silicon Valley chapter and a member of J Street's national board, although I am speaking on my own behalf today and not that organization. I want to thank you for examining this topic. I think doing it in 120 minutes is going to be challenging. I think 120 days may not be enough to truly understand the nuance. But I wanted to ask you today to pay very careful attention to how anti-Semitism is defined in your training. From what I know of the company delivering the training, Project Shema, their definition of anti-Semitism goes beyond the bounds of what I and many other liberal Jews in this community would consider appropriate. The weaponization of anti-Semitism by the Trump administration and MAGA, as well as multiple Jewish organizations, is deeply troubling to me. Rather than addressing genuine threats of anti-Semitism, such as rising hate crimes, white nationalist rhetoric, and conspiracy theories, some on the right have selectively used accusations of anti-Semitism as a political tool, primarily to silence criticism of the state of Israel and its policies. Destroying Harvard is not what I would want to see done in the name of anti-Semitism, but it is being done in the name of anti-Semitism as a disguise for anti-liberalism. So I want you to be aware of the complexity of this. Conflating anti-Zionism with criticism of Israel is not appropriate. These are not the same things. Anti-Semitism is hatred or discrimination against Jews as a people, a religion, but criticizing the policies of a nation state, any nation state, Israel, the United States, Vietnam, is not a legitimate form of anti-Semitism. I and many other Jews criticize Israel. I may stand with Vigils for Gaza. I do stand with Vigils for Gaza on Sunday afternoons on the corner of El Camino. And I hold up signs that accuse Netanyahu of war crimes, which I believe. I hold up signs accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza, which I believe. But these expressions are not anti-Semitic. They are criticism of Israel. They are political criticism, and that is not anti-Semitic. So I ask you to be careful not to unquestionably adopt definitions of anti-Semitism, which may be too broad and too wide. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Alina, followed by Jennifer.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Alina. So I had a couple of words written down, but I wanted to just speak to you guys directly. So I apologize if it sounds a little bit disjointed or it doesn't sound rehearsed. Hi, Mary Kate. Hi, Katie. So I just want to tell you about, my real life and like just what I go through every day. So today, and it's crazy that this happened on this day. I didn't plan for it to happen. But I recently became friends with this refugee from Gaza. So miraculously, she was able to come here with her husband, but her husband's brothers are still living in tents on the sand. So, we were just like talking, making conversation. And I was driving her to her destination because she needed a ride somewhere. And, she, like, given everything she's gone through, somehow she was still smiling and like in good spirits. And I said to her, like, how do you have so much patience despite everything you've gone through? And she, kind of just like smiled sadly, but she was like, we have faith. We have faith in God and we have hope. And literally, like, I was sitting there next to her and I was thinking, like, my tax dollars are the reason that you're sitting here next to me. Homeless, right? You're driven from your home. You're You don't know what's going to happen to your nieces or nephews, but somehow, like, she's still there and functioning. Like, I could never do that. So, you know, when the speaker before me just said, like, certain phrases or even just talking about these experiences become weaponized, like we're saying that, I mean, it gets driven to an extreme, like whatever people will say, which is not true, that, they're, I don't know, Jews don't have a right to exist in safety, or they don't have a right to, like, live in Israel or whatever. But all I'm saying here as myself, and is like talking about literally what happened a few hours ago, is literally just like talking about these people as human beings, right? Like, and this is not probably going to be part of your training, but this is where we're coming from, advocates for the cause. And when we come up publicly and we give you our full name and we're talking about Palestine, and we're very likely going to get doxxed, or not get hired or get fired from our jobs. Like, there's so much risk that comes with coming up here and talking to you about my lived experience. And it's hard, right? I'm like shaking and I'm breathing really fast, but I'm still doing it because this is the least I can do for my friends like Iman, who I just sat next to. So this is just what I wanted to share with you guys today. And keep that in mind when you consider like how you want to structure training and what kind of phrases you're thinking like might get policed or sound threatening, because
Your
they're
time
not
is up.
threatening.
Our next speaker is Jennifer, followed by Uzma.
Hello. Soon after October 7th, 2023, I saw a Jewish mom at school. Our sons were in the same class. We hugged each other, acknowledging both of us were going through a very difficult time. Jewish people have experienced trauma and threat of erasure. Muslims and Palestinians have also experienced trauma and threat of erasure. Ordinarily, when there are issues of religious discrimination in this country, Jews and Muslims are on the same side. But what has happened since October 7th shows serious differences in how Jews, Muslims, and Palestinians are treated when experiencing harm. Building cultural competency within organizations means honesty about structural power. Who holds it and who doesn't? You know the saying, history is written by the winners, and the reality that means. Uncomfortable truths are erased, glossed over, or twisted. Addressing systemic causes of harm is critical for enacting positive change after these trainings. This training being voluntary concerns me. Perhaps the people who most need it will not go. How will city departments and interactions with the public be impacted? My second concern is that this training is only 2 hours. What are the plans for afterward? If the city truly intends to implement change, how will that happen, and how will the outcome be measured? What will accountability look like? Holocaust denial is, rightly, a crime in many places. Conversely, calling what is happening now in Gaza a genocide has been criminalized. Criticizing government or military actions does not equal hate crimes against people of a certain ancestry or faith. Calling current events in Gaza a genocide is not a personal opinion. It meets the definition of genocide determined by the United Nations Special Committee, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and Doctors Without Borders. This much needed training must be structured and delivered in a way that is honest, acknowledging harm, facts, and steps to take going forward. If calling the Gaza genocide exactly that is not allowed, or there is not a separation between condemning anti-Semitism, which is essential, and forbidding criticism of Zionism, the city must address this with Project Shema. In describing events at Harvard, Jewish Currents in an article suggests that Project Shema restricts discourse in these ways. Palo Alto passed a rule forbidding itself from making resolutions or statements on foreign affairs. Yet the mayor at the time issued a detailed statement condemning the war crimes of October 7th. What about the ongoing killings, blockage of food and medical aid, destruction of hospitals, schools, and homes in Palestine? This selective silence is a form of institutionalized bigotry. Any training that fails to reflect on Palo Alto's own policies, power imbalances, and patterns of bias is flawed at its core. What is happening in Gaza is not foreign or distant. It directly impacts our community and is deeply personal and painful to the Muslims, Arabs, and Palestinians here. There is a power imbalance here. One only has to look at which holidays are celebrated with city decorations and which are not to see there are groups in our community who are not truly seen, included, or valued. There is a Christmas tree and menorah, but is there a menorah for Kwanzaa candles?
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Uzma, followed by Robin M.
I want to first thank the commission for taking on this very hard journey and task of paying attention to this important issue and following through with recommendations. Over a year ago, I think it was last year in March, I remember standing at an HRC meeting similar to today, listening to a brave Jewish resident of Palo Alto speak out against what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, which crimes of humanity, crimes of extermination. Honestly, I no longer have the words for them anymore right now in July 2025. But that moment stayed with me because after she advocated for Palestinian humanity, another community member stood up and told her that she was not Jewish. And the room erupted in applause and everyone cheered. I was horrified. They were horrified. Not just by what was said, but the silence in the room, the silence from the commission, the silence from the city. How could this be happening? How could a Jewish advocate for Palestinian human rights be facing this type of hostility here in Palo Alto to a cheering room? And yet this is not an isolated incident. It happens again and again. As a proud Muslim, our community has been trying to engage in civic life. When we attend these meetings, when we brought in our coalition by creating allies, when we try and run for office or boards or commissions, when we try and build and contribute. And yet, how are we treated? Just now, a few days ago, a venture partner at a Silicon Valley, publicly accused the current mayoral candidate of a major US city, I won't say which one, but I bet you can guess, of coming from a culture that lies about everything and accusing him of being an Islamist. So this is how we're treated when we do things the right way, when we get involved in civic life, when we run for office, when we're about to become the mayor of a very, very large city. Our culture is vilified, our identity reduced, our humanity erased. Please address these very real and local issues in whatever training that you are doing. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robin M., followed by Sarit S.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Robin Morris. I've lived in Palo Alto for 27 years. I'm a member of 3 of the Palo Alto synagogues, and I have my children go to both the Palo Alto public schools and the Jewish schools in Palo Alto. When you go to Gunn High School, it's an open campus. You can walk wherever you like. My daughter's going to Middle College, which is at Foothill. Again, the campus is open. You can walk wherever you like. If you go to either of the Jewish schools in Palo Alto, you find that you can't get in and you're greeted by an armed guard on the door. I don't know of any other private schools in Palo Alto where armed guards seem to be necessary. And I believe that the synagogues that we attend are the only houses in worship in Palo Alto that also need the protection of armed guards. And unfortunately, as we've seen recently in other parts of the country, these guards seem to be necessary. I also participated in the listening sessions that the HRC organized last year, and I would like to thank the Commission for listening carefully to the Palo Alto Jewish community and understanding our concerns. And I would like to thank the city staff and members of the HRC for their choice of organizations to conduct the training. Project Shema and ING Project Shema being aligned with the mainstream of Palo Alto Jewry, as I think you'll see this evening. And I hope this training will allow city council members and other city staff to gain a better understanding of the concerns of our community. And if I may, I have one suggestion. I also noticed that the training is voluntary, and I'd like to urge the members of the Commission to encourage to the greatest extent they can that the members of the City Council, the staff and the boards attend the training. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarit S., followed by Heath W.
Hello, my name is Sarit Shubi, and I've been a Jewish resident of Palo Alto for 15 years, over 15 years. I'm here tonight to thank you for carefully vetting and researching recommendations for anti-Semitism and Islamophobia training. I know that city staff has had to balance lots of competing interests on training providers. Thank you for focusing on mainstream trainers that can build understanding in our leadership and community. ING and Project Shema are balanced, mainstream, vetted trainers who have done well-received training in San Mateo together, and I'm sure that they will do a good job in Palo Alto too. I'm grateful for your work and remain committed to partnering with the city to help in any way I can. I would also like to add that, like two of the previous speakers, I would encourage you to encourage city staff to attend these trainings and not simply make it voluntary, because you've spent so much time working on this. It would be a shame if they weren't well attended. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Heath W., followed by Lori M.
Good evening. I want to thank the Human Relations Commission for opening this conversation. I'm Rabbi Heath Wattenmaker. I'm one of the rabbis at Congregation Beth Am, liberal Reform synagogue in Los Altos Hills, and the majority of our 1,200 families do live in Palo Alto. In September of 2023, we were swatted during our Shabbat services. Over the last couple of years, we've received a number of unsubstantiated bomb threats, and I spend a lot of time hearing from congregants and our teens in particular about issues of anti-Semitism in their schools, from Jewish jokes or swastikas scribbled on their campuses to some really spiteful and hurtful things said to them about Jews, as if they are somehow responsible for the actions of all Jews everywhere. I want to thank you, the committee, and thank the commission tonight for taking on Project Shema and ING as training protocols for combating anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. I think it's so important for both of these to be taken on in concert. So much pain and difficulty that there's been in both of these communities since October 7th. I know that it's complicated and thorny and is the kind of thing that requires genuine, open discussion, mutual respect and listening, and nuance, and also seeks to foster understanding of many different cultural perspectives as well. I think it is so important, and we so desperately need to find ways to see and acknowledge each other's humanity. I appreciate that the commission has taken this middle-of-the-road approach in Project Shema and ING that I really do hope is going to make a big impact. I want to echo what's been said already about this idea of the importance of strongly encouraging participation in these trainings to the best of your abilities so that their impact really is felt across the board. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lori M., followed by Alan C.
Thank you to the HRC, Chantal, Kojo, and city staff for making this ING and Project Shema training happen. Thank you for carefully vetting and choosing providers who have worked in partnership before and can model understanding and respect for each other's pain, joy, and common humanity. This type of training has gone badly in other cities, and your hard work will make sure that that doesn't happen here. I was a panelist at the January 2024 listening session with the Jewish community. I shared my own family's experiences with anti-Semitism in Palo Alto, including my daughter being told that Hitler didn't finish the job and my son being called a stupid Jew outside Mountain Mike's. Both of my children having pennies thrown at them, an old anti-Semitic trope about Jews and money. Myself looking for books on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at the Palo Alto Library, only to find that staff recommends a book and still recommends it by an author who posted, "What Hitler did to you was a picnic. We will smash your skulls and drink your blood." Being called a violent colonizer at a Valentine's Day rally outside of City Hall right here. A public commenter at council meetings accusing Jewish Israelis of harvesting Palestinian organs on her social media. Another commenter calling us vile Zionists and the powerful Jewish lobby, more anti-Semitism about Jews in power, and swastikas all over the place. I pray that this training helps our leaders recognize anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and gives them the language and confidence to call it out and condemn it, and model for all of us to do the same, no matter who the hate is targeting. We can express our pain and our opinions without causing pain to our neighbors, and we can teach our children to do the same.
Two requests. Urge all city leadership to attend this training. It's too important to miss. Number two, make this training specific to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in Palo Alto and nearby cities. Use real local incidents as case studies so leaders gain practical tools to make things better right here. We're grateful to you and we're counting on you to get this training across the finish line. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Alan C., followed by Deborah G.
Hi, I'm Alan Crystal, and I've been a resident in Palo Alto since 1980. I'm currently the executive director at Congregation Kol Emet in Palo Alto, the conservative synagogue. I'm also just a concerned citizen and resident for many years. I too want to thank the commission and the staff for the work involved in doing this and the courage involved in doing this. It is very important. We've seen a lot of acrimony, but the training that you're putting together is an opportunity, I think, for the community to learn and understand better. And I think the vendors that you've chosen look to me like a very good organizations that can help raise awareness for folks. So thank you for doing that. I did want to say it's sad to me, very painful, I know, to probably everyone in this room to know all of the difficulties that people have had to deal with over the last, especially since October 7th, but before then, and even very recently with the murder of 2 Jews in Washington, D.C. That's an event that's far away from us. And yet, in the aftermath of that, it's something as executive director at the synagogue had to think about, well, what does that mean? What is the possibility that something like that could happen here, a dreadful incident like that? So it is real, unfortunately, and that's why I think this training is needed, and I appreciate you all doing it. I too encourage that as many people as possible participate in it, even if it's not mandatory, it should be strongly encouraged. So thank you again.
Our next speaker is Deborah G., followed by David B.
I've lived in Palo Alto since 1963, and I was raised here when there was a very strong, large Jewish community. I'm used to living in an area where there's a lot of understanding of Jewish experience and a lot of people who know who Jews are. And in the past 2 years, I've woken up to the fact that this is unusual, extremely so. First, I do want to thank the commission for taking this very seriously. And I'm proud of the city, and I'm proud that I live in the city that is taking this seriously. I never in my wildest imaginings would I have ever thought you would have had to have anti-Semitism training. I was like, how can you not understand? But then all of a sudden I'm hearing all of my liberal friends say to me, well, Deb, I mean, why does Israel even have to exist? I mean, what's the job? I'm like, what? For me, that's like saying, well, why do trans people need rights? I mean, what has to be special for them? Or, you know, the thought that this could even be a concept, that the autonomy and sovereignty of Israel would ever be brought into question, is kind of like the thought that we would ever lose the right to have, as women, to have control of our bodies. And we did lose that in the United States. So it's pretty freaking scary, and it's very subtle. It's remarkably subtle, and people don't know Jews. I mean, I go places now. I finally wear a Mogen David. I just like never really bothered because I don't wear jewelry, and people will stop me. It's like, you're a Jew? I'm like, yes. I'm like, oh wow. Well, I've heard. Well, what about these awful things your people are doing to the Palestinians? Yeah, I get this deluge. I'm like, whoa. You know, we start with Jewish Education 101, and they really haven't a clue. So yeah, this training is really needed, and there's a lot of subtlety and perversity to it. So I trust that the city is going to make a sane, stable, conservative decision in who they choose for their educators. And thank you again.
Our next speaker is David B., followed by Yuri Z.
Thank you. I'm David Booth. I'm one of the rabbis at Congregation Kol Emet in Palo Alto. I've been living in Palo Alto for 19 years now and a longtime resident of the Bay Area almost my whole life. I'm really grateful for the thoughtfulness that the Council and Human Rights Commission has brought to this issue. I think it's an exceptional leader kind of in our area and really nationwide. And among the things I feel like have been really thoughtful is to try to bring communities together and listen to each other. The draft document that we created with City Council was a model and something I'm not aware of really in any other city. So it's just a remarkable achievement on our part. And I feel very pleased also that the council and the commission has decided that not only is there a necessity to do training both on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but to recognize that both of those hatreds and bigotries, while we condemn all forms of hatred and bigotry, also every hatred and bigotry has its own virulent form and stature and language and dog whistles and ways that it's expressed. And it's critical to get training from members of each community to be able to understand the ways in which that language can be used and misused and how hurtful and how it can be experienced by each of those respective communities. I feel like the two partners that you've chosen are excellent choices. This is clearly not an easy decision. I feel like this draws maybe more comment than some of the other agenda items that you may have. And it's difficult to be managing something that's so challenging and so difficult. And I'm grateful to all of you for stepping forward. And I think taking a fair amount of criticism as a result, because any way you jump, somebody's going to yell at you. And it's just a very difficult situation. So I appreciate that a lot. I do just want to respond a little bit. You know, Project Shema is a relatively new organization. It's, I think, just been around for the last 2 or 3 years. On their FAQs, they identified, does Project Shema endorse any public definitions of anti-Semitism? No, Project Shema has never endorsed or promoted these or any other organization's definition of anti-Semitism. It isn't our goal to get participants to embrace a specific policy definition of anti-Semitism. Our goal is to give participants the understanding and tools to unpack their anti-Jewish biases. So I think it's a very good choice in that regard. I also just want to say there is valid room, of course, to criticize Israel and its government. I personally am not a fan of the current government of Israel, and I like the previous government a lot better. By the same token, it is also naive to not think that there are people who use language against the state of Israel, anti-Zionism, in ways that quickly bleed over into anti-Semitism. And so we need to distinguish between the two, but that means city workers and city staff have to understand what's a very nuanced and difficult issue, and when does that line get crossed? So I'm grateful that you're wading into this. I think it's necessary for our city. I echo those who are saying, please make this training mandatory, or at least strongly encourage staff to attend. And again, just really appreciate your stepping forward and taking leadership in this issue. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Yuri Z, followed by Michelle H.
My name is Yuri Zernik. I'm a Jewish voter and have lived in Palo Alto for 27 years. Times have passed quickly, and this city has become a beloved home to my family and me. So I prepared these notes, but before I continue, I wanted to say I cannot ignore the words that are spoken here before me. And I really identify with each one of the speakers before me. It's really touching, and I definitely understand that pain that everybody here is going through. Frankly, it's easier for me to have a dialogue with any party when I'm in Israel, because in Israel, we understand the subtleties and you know exactly each person's what we are doing. You know, in Israel, for example, my family were helping Palestinians get driven from the border to hospitals in Israel, and they know it. Okay, I want to thank you for your thoughtful and careful work in vetting a panel with those two trainers, ING and Project Shema, and for advancing anti-Semitism and Islamophobia training. As the world around us, including our own state of California, has become increasingly turbulent, I ask, can we keep this storm from reaching our city? Can we keep Palo Alto a place that remains calm and welcoming, where people talk to each other, where my grandchildren can feel safe walking in streets and attending public schools? I see this recommended training plan as a meaningful step in the right direction. Thank you for your commitment to inclusion, safety, and the well-being for our community.
Our next speaker is Michelle H, followed by Sarith H.
Thank you.
The upcoming training on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is of great importance and also great concern to our Palestinian human rights community, given the degree to which we are regularly falsely accused of anti-Semitism while also being subjected to explicit anti-Palestinian racism. I am here tonight to speak as a member of Vigil for Gaza, a Palo Alto-based grassroots group dedicated to advocating for Palestinian human rights, including an end to the illegal occupation and apartheid system, and to ongoing ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. The upcoming training on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is of great concern to us, given the degree to which we're regularly falsely accused of anti-Semitism, including our Jewish community members, and subject to the full range of racist tropes that our Muslim, Arab, and Palestinian community members are subjected to as a matter of course. Any training that continues, however subtly, to push a narrative that conflates any criticism of the actions of Israel with anti-Semitism will further embed this narrative. Unfortunately, there is considerable evidence that Project Shema has a record of pushing this false narrative, so we are left unsettled that they are the provider. I am a resident of the city of Palo Alto and a citizen of the United States. If I was not a citizen, advocating for Palestinian human rights would put me in serious peril, all the way up to imprisonment and deportation. Activists for Palestinian human rights on green cards and student visas have been detained by the US government for long periods of time and threatened with deportation, suspended from college campuses and had their degrees withheld, had job offers out of college withdrawn due to doxing, or for constitutionally protected free speech. There have been no equivalent actions directed at defenders of the actions of the government of Israel, and nor should there be. It is this asymmetry of power that makes the combined Jewish-Muslim anti-bias training potentially fraught. If that power differential and the real-world consequences are not acknowledged and foregrounded, then the danger is real that the false conflation of criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism will be further embedded at City Hall. And the community that is committed to Palestinian human rights is left further marginalized in defensive mode over slogans that call for freedom and equality and terminology that accurately describes the situation in Palestine and Israel. We are already very much on the back foot in this community. City Hall is far from responsive to our issues and has acted in ways that can only be described as deeply biased. On June 29th, an individual came to the vigil with the express purpose of harassing and threatening us. He called an 84-year-old Jewish vigil attendee our token Jew and a George Soros Jew who would have been given Jews to the Nazis. Your time is up.
That's what we're dealing with. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Sarith H., followed by Lama R.
Hi, my name is Sarit, and I want to thank you for taking real steps to address anti-Semitism through education. I was one of the speakers at the listening session back in January 2024, and I remember clearly how heavy that moment felt, how much pain and urgency was in the room. And that's why I'm truly thrilled to see the city taking this important step forward. As a parent of 3 and someone who has supported many Jewish Palo Altans of all ages who have experienced anti-Semitism firsthand, including bullying, harassment, discrimination, and even violence, I know how deeply this issue affects families and individuals in our community. Anti-Semitism isn't abstract. It shows up here in real and painful ways, in schools, in public spaces, at work, every single day. And it's stronger and more shocking than ever before. And nationally, according to FBI hate crime data, Jewish people remain among the most frequently targeted groups, despite being only 2% of the population. This is a fact that impacts our community here in Palo Alto. Just ask Palo Alto Police. That's why this initiative matters so deeply. Your choice to move forward with education and to do so thoughtfully means the world to our community. I know how challenging it is to find anti-Semitism and Islamophobia training providers that are both balanced and credible, especially for something this sensitive. But that effort speaks volumes. It shows that the city is not just hearing us, but responding, and that you are willing to do the hard work to make all of us feel safer. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment.
Our next speaker is Lama R, followed by Sir Shri Rin S.
Yeah, I made it. Hi. I'm Dr. Lama Rimawi. Actually, nice to see you all here, and thank you for hosting us here. I'm a board member of the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom. Not here as a representative, but it's the nation's largest Muslim Jewish women's group. And I'm also president and co-founder of the Institute for the Understanding of Anti-Palestinian Racism. As I mentioned, I'm a pediatrician as well. And I'm here because I think it's really important to not erase us. I'm a Palestinian American. And I noticed that you mentioned that this was about religious discrimination and anti-Arab racism, but Palestinians were not mentioned. Anti-Palestinian racism, the aim of it is to erase us. It's to erase Palestinians, their narratives, their stories, their history. And it's also to create fear of retribution so that people are too afraid to speak about it, including non-Palestinian allies. My 13-year-old son received a message saying, "I will F you up like the Palestinians," from another boy in his school. Wadi Al-Fayoumi, as far as I know, is the only child that's been murdered. He was 6 years old. He was murdered because he was Palestinian. In a meeting with city council members here in Palo Alto, I was talking about the trauma children and their families were experiencing here in Palo Alto because they were witnessing the potential genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. I was interrupted and told that I could not say the word genocide because it was triggering. Can you imagine how triggering it is to not be able to talk about the potential genocide of my own people? I beg you to take a look at what Project Shema does and how it educates. Does it stop the erasure of Palestinians? Does it allow us to speak about our own trauma? Please bring in groups that will allow us to talk about what's happening to us. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sharon S.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a Palo Alto resident and parent, and also a law professor specializing in civil rights and in hate crimes and political violence. I really appreciate that the Human Relations Commission is holding this hearing and thinking through the content of these trainings. It is extremely important that in this challenging political moment, we all stand for the common humanity of all our communities, whether Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, those of other faiths or no faith at all. I'm speaking today because I am concerned that anti-bias trainings, if not done carefully, can actually suppress the ability of people to advocate for human rights. For well over a year, Palestinians have been subjected to the worst forms of dehumanization and violence, both in Palestine, but also throughout the United States and here in the Bay Area. Just last week, Amnesty International concluded that Israel, backed by the United States, is using starvation as a weapon of war in Gaza and continuing its genocide against Palestinians. Back in December, both Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, leading human rights organizations, concluded that Israeli authorities were engaged in genocide of the Palestinian people. And even before October 2023, human rights groups had concluded that the occupation and discrimination against Palestinians amounted to racial apartheid, a crime under international law. So in that context, I am concerned to see some of the training materials used by Project Shema. The group's online campus resource guide, for instance, criticizes references to decolonization, the Intifada, the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," or any linkages between Zionism and apartheid or genocide. Political speech is often uncomfortable, it can be contentious, but that can't be the standard for whether we can have these kinds of conversations. We rarely ask in these contexts, when we talk about Palestinian speech, what that speech means to the Palestinians using these words in their decades-long struggle for a homeland. I would urge you to consider, for instance, the academic work by historian Mahad Nasser, who has written about the meaning of some of these slogans for Palestinians. Our schools, our campuses, and our communities must remain places where we can freely talk about contentious, complicated, and challenging issues related to colonialism, racism, and war crimes, and where especially we can speak to the fundamental human rights issues of our time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miriam.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
As a longtime Palo Alto resident and a member of the Jewish community, I want to applaud our city's intent to educate staff and leadership on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. They must be understood first to be effectively combated. Your commitment to a balanced training experience with joint panels will hopefully itself be an expression of tolerance. No one interest group will embrace the perspectives brought by both trainers, but we should embrace the opportunity for dialogue. I want to add my voice to both Muslim and Jewish speakers before me who suggested this not be merely voluntary training. As you note and as you've seen, these issues are deeply personal. Years ago, I experienced a welcome community in Palo Alto with multiple long-established Jewish institutions and even a new JCC coming up in 2009. But sadly, the atmosphere has changed. Where once I could casually walk into Kolomet Synagogue, by the time of my grandson's bar mitzvah there in 2022, it had become a veritable fortress. No other religious group requires this level of security. It reflects an appalling rise in anti-Semitism in our community over the last decades. Recently, hateful slogans, signs, and speech in Palo Alto have introduced an anti-Jewish atmosphere in town. Words matter. We've seen anti-Semitic murders recently in DC and Boulder, and those murderers shouted some of these same slogans. This should not and must not be the norm. I speak here as a senior citizen, bridging the generation of my father, who fought the Nazis as a U.S. Marine in World War II, and my grandchildren, who have to decide whether they are brave enough to wear a Jewish star to school. We must stand together, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, believers and non-believers, with one voice to ensure we are all welcome and comfortable within our city and our county. Thank you for not dismissing my Jewish community's very real and immediate concerns. Thank you for having a thoughtful process and for trying to address and understand the concerns of the Jewish and Islamic communities.
And our final speaker is Calda.
Hi, my name is Kelda, and I am, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kelda, and I am a Palo Alto resident, a parent, and I have listened with great attention and gratitude to the conversation so far and have been tracking the ongoing, extremely pained, often very pained and very intensely felt conversations that we've been having in our communities for the past couple of years, especially since the fall of 2023. I took some time earlier this week to review the sample campus training that Project Shema is available online for training campus-based folks. This is a context that I care deeply about. Shireen referred to this same training guide, I believe, in the comments that she made a bit back. And I want to express my concern in line with some of those comments that that she made in the context of deportation, of people's social media being tracked before they are allowed. I work at Stanford, and the international visitors I bring are having their visas denied for periods of time while the government scans their Facebook. It is now part of their research visa process that their entire social media profile will be scanned to see if they fit our government's current ideas of what is socially what is acceptable to say, what expressions, what ideas, what thoughts, what words they were allowed to use before they are entering the U.S. And in a context like this, when I read efforts at training that still end up landing on saying that certain words should not be used, that words are necessarily violent by virtue of just existing, I worry greatly about our own contributing to that wider political climate of the repression of free speech, of the repression of nuanced, complicated ideas. I tell my kids all the time that they are capable of hard things. I believe that my kids, that all of our kids, that all of us are capable of doing hard, difficult, nuanced conversation. And I very much want to encourage anyone taking this training to hear, to be very wary of weaponizing slogans or weaponizing anti-Semitism against many people who are trying very hard to express the lived pain of their own experience and who are witnessing the suffering of people on a scale that I have never seen in my life. I apologize for not being as coherent as I wish I could be, but I want to end by thanking you all for taking this seriously and with great hope that we can, as a community, come together and do this hard work together. Thank you so much.
And that concludes public comment on business item 2.
Great. Thank you again to everyone who shared. I know that this is a very deeply felt topic, and I appreciate all of you coming together and sharing and being part of this conversation with us. So thank you so much. I will, should we do a round robin? Or maybe we'll just go, why don't we just do popcorn style today? Whoever would like to speak, just raise your hand and we'll go from there. All right, thank you, Vice Chair.
Something I heard, and by the way, thank you all for sharing and being with us for almost 2 years. Thank you. The members of the communities, the staff, and the elected officials. Thank you. One thing I'm hearing, and I kept taking notes, is an urging for us to make this training, if not mandatory, recommended to all staff, all electeds, and all commissioners across the commissions. I think we as the HRC should consider making a resolution urging the council to look seriously at the wording of voluntary versus recommended versus mandatory. I think we've gone on a long journey together, and we all need to be there at the beginning of this stop, of this opportunity for education. So I would love to consider a resolution from the HRC recommending that we consider this more than voluntary, that we consider it recommended and possibly mandatory.
Vice Chair, just to let you know, I hear your comment. It is a discussion item, so you can't take an action, but I think if hearing from the various commissioners, that will be very strongly heard by staff.
Can we, after discussion, make a resolution?
No, because it wasn't listed as an action item on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Mika, on the procedural. I just wanted to offer a little bit of additional insight for thoughts on how you may want to make that recommendation. I love the language of strongly urging everyone to attend. I will just remind the commission, our city staff population is over 1,000 people. The number of board and commission members in total is probably 60-ish. I'm making that number up off the top of my head, trying to do the math of 5 to 7 times about 7 commissions, 5 to 7 commissions, in addition to the 7 council members. It is possible that we will be able to do more than one training. As context, we have only had maybe 1 or 2 required trainings for city staff. Historically, it's cybersecurity training every year, as well as an anti-harassment training every other year for city staff. Those are required, and for the city council. We are currently doing an anti-harassment training as a strongly urged training for all board and commission members. It's not required for commission members.
I took it.
So if you haven't done it, reminder, that's pending. And so, but there is just some formality that we would have to do. And for the one required training that was actually in person in recent years for city staff, we had to split that over the course of probably about 8 to 10 trainings, taking into account that we have police officers working the night shift, firefighters, et cetera. So just offering that as additional context that because of the multiple lines of business areas that the city staff have, it's not just one training that could accommodate everyone. And the same for board and commission members, and making sure we don't accidentally hit a quorum or anything like that that would cause complications with the Brown Act. But I think I'm hearing very clearly that there's a desire from the commission to encourage as many people as possible to take the training. And then we can talk to the providers about how we can maybe expand the number of sessions that would maybe allow us to be able to accommodate that a little more. So just wanted to give that context as you're deliberating on that.
Christian Barr?
I just wanted to comment that throughout the comments we have heard, a word keeps coming to mind, and that word is trust. And I think that that is central to this whole process, that our community can actually trust what we as a commission are trying to do. And I think that we need to keep that as central to our goal and purpose is to maintain trust.
Sure. I just, for now, I've got one question, just for staff for transparency. Could you walk through, like, what was the process of choosing, like, why were these 2 organizations chosen over other organizations? What was that process like?
I'm sorry, looking at each other. We received a bunch of recommendations from members of the community, as well as knowing in the listening sessions that some organizations came up. We had meetings with those different organizations, just trying to understand the types of trainings that they offered. Also meeting with some of the community members that specifically asked to have conversations around it so that we can better understand the recommendations that were coming from them. Part of why we landed at 2 organizations as recommendation, working with the HRC chair and the former chair, is really knowing that it looked very difficult to find just one organization that could cover the variety of perspectives that the direction to us encouraged us to cover. And so given that we knew that there would be more than one organization more than likely doing the training, then it was a question of which organizations could work well together or have had some sort of history of doing that. So that was sort of how we narrowed it over time. Not an overly strict rubric or anything like that. Similar to other trainings that we've done in this space, it's really important for us to just understand the work that an organization can do and if it's a good fit for our staff and the community. And so that's sort of how we narrowed it down.
I was going to chime in on that because I know that I had the honor, along with Chair Stimler, to work on this with Chantel and Kojo. And I know that they spent countless hours receiving feedback from the community, researching vendors, meeting with them, and talking to them about the possible training. It was not an easy task, and as you can imagine, the community members of the city have very strong feelings about the vendors. And if one segment thought this vendor was great, the other segment obviously thought that that vendor was terrible. So this was a very difficult task. And they took everyone's thoughts, everyone's feedback into account. And I had the pleasure of meeting with Project Shema and ING as well, when we were talking about the training, what they were going to provide. And I was satisfied with what they were going to do. They specifically told us, Project Shema, that they did not define anti-Semitism during their training. I thought they were, I was moved during the meeting. It felt a little bit hopeful that there was going to be some kind of dialogue, a nuanced conversation. This was a very difficult decision, and I think that the city staff did a great job, and honestly, as well as it could be done. I think we need to keep in mind that everybody wants to have these difficult and nuanced conversations, but if we cannot engage with each other, then they're never going to happen. We need to be able to sit at the table and talk to each other. So we have two organizations that are willing to work together and provide this training. And given all the feedback that we got, I think we ended up at a good spot. So like Commissioner Barr said, you have to trust us, and don't forget that the training is also not just the trainers. There are city employees involved. People can bring their questions. They're going to, hopefully engage in a dialogue. So I just ask you to trust us. Thank you.
Microphone, please.
There we go. There we go. Little technical glitch. Okay. One thing that came loud and clear that maybe there's concerns around. I actually didn't hear too many concerns around the vendors we chose to do the Islamophobia side of the training, the ING vendor, but there was significant, multiple speakers did speak to one major concern around Project Shema, and that is around the breadth of their definition of anti-Semitism. I heard that loud and clear from multiple commenters, and the concern around how do we carefully disentangle, if it's even possible, the ability to criticize, make political criticisms and anti-Semitism. And that is a very complicated, very nuanced topic. And I do want to say that it is not one that either vendor is taking very lightly. In fact, if you go into our outline, the outline that was provided publicly with the agenda, I just wanted to call out so that you are aware of what the vendors have already worked together to put together. And one of the sections is around protest chants and community perceptions. That section will actually be taught both from an anti-Semitic, the anti-Islamophobia vendor and the anti-Semitic, sorry, I'm going in a circle, but I think you all know what I mean. Both vendors, I will use the word both vendors. It's a lot of but anyway, both vendors will be teaching that together. And I think that's really important to the points Commissioner Eberly said, because we will get multiple perspectives in just that conversation. It is being taught as a dialogue. And while that might not mean a black and white, here's a definition, here's what falls inside and outside that definition, I think we would all love to have that clarity, but I don't think that that clarity is truthful or honest to what the situation is, because those issues are so enmeshed with each other. And that is the way it's going to be taught. It's going to be taught from multiple vendors, from multiple perspectives. And that multiplicity, I think, is truthful to what is experienced in our community on a daily basis. So I wanted to call that out, and I wanted to say we are asking our vendors to watch this and to respond to us with what they have heard. And I'm sure that will come loud and clear because it came through loud and clear in the comments and the concerns around Project Shema. So as they watch this, they will hear that and we will have a conversation as well. I will also say that in Commissioner Eberly and I's conversation with Project Shema, we did ask them what is their definition of anti-Semitism, because we knew that this would be a concern for having heard from the community before. And they, to what the rabbi found on their website, stated that they don't provide just a straight up definition. In fact, they choose instead to focus on anti-Jewish harms. So what are the harms that are being felt in the community rather than providing a solid definition? And I think that, that is something that that is how they define, not how they don't define anti-Semitism, but that is how they approach anti-Semitic biases, is by looking through the lens of harm to the community. So those two things I wanted to call out. And the last thing I wanted to say was, I think one of the speakers talked about the erasure of Palestinians in this conversation. I think I might have actually been the person that comment might have been directed to in my opening statements. And I apologize. I may have excluded Palestinian when I was describing what we were aiming to do, but I did want to again call out that anti-Palestinian hatred and racism is included in the training very explicitly. That was something, again, we heard from the community and we were hoping to cover in this training. So please know that that is one. I've heard you, and I apologize specifically if I did do that exclusion. Obviously, I get tangled in my words, so I might have skipped over it. All right, I think that is all I really wanted to clarify. Thank you again, everyone. Oh, yes, Commissioner Cornell.
This is an open question. I think 3 of the 18 public comments were inclined towards incorporating real local incidents as part of the case studies. Is that something that we would bring or the city would bring, or is that part of like the like how do we?
It's a great question, and I actually was thinking when that recommendation was made, again, listening to the comments and what people have already shared will be a great start to that. I'm reluctant to ask people to bring to have to restate what they've already stated, but in our listening sessions from last year, and in this again tonight's listening session, I think there's really good examples that people are people talking about their personal lived experiences. So I think that would be great fodder. Yeah, continue.
Are there more formal process like police reports or any other formal reports that we could incorporate and give it to the vendor?
We can do that. I can coordinate with our people in the police department that work very closely with us on public safety, and we can see if there is a record of incidences that have been reported and crimes that have been reported.
Yes, we'll be able to request data that has been reported. It's also a reminder for folks to actually report those to our police department because we wouldn't otherwise have the information.
And just an obvious caveat, what we heard today was a lot of fear around disclosure of these types of acts. So obviously to our vendors, when you watch this, note that there are a lot of people in our community who no longer feel safe reporting acts of hatred. Yes, Commissioner Coase.
Just a point of information, we held a session, a lunch that our mayor was there and active with the faith leaders, many of who are in this room, to encourage conversation with the Palo Alto police so that they know the leaders before there is an incident or a crime. And we held prior to that, a workshop on hate crimes that was led by our district attorney, our chief of police, and others that were in the room. So we've done extensive work on encouraging conversation and dialogue, but we'll do more.
My final comment, because a lot of people have said what I was going to say. I think what we maybe should have led with, and if members of the public haven't already, I really strongly recommend looking at the outline proposed for the training, because I think it's very in-depth. It's very valuable to see where these two vendors would be working together and are already working together. And also the staff analysis is very valuable of the work that went into this and considering different perspectives. And I would say, like, what is most important for me to come out of this is how focused this training is. And this is what I appreciate the most, is on, as it says, strategies for city leadership, responding to hate incidences, navigating bias, creating inclusive spaces, because for me, it's when a member of our city is working on an issue, whether that's policing, housing, creating public spaces, they understand the different perspectives of the communities that they're serving.
All right, and I guess that will conclude our discussion of the training. Again, thank you to everyone who came. We will now move to city official reports. Are there any commissioner reports? I know it's the middle of summer, so things are a little slow right now. Any liaison updates?
Not here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Good point. All right, then I think if there are no, Minka, staff updates, the training, the sexual harassment training.
Yes, and I was also going to make just a acknowledgement and to say that there's a lot going on this summer in Palo Alto, that a lot have worked to create some really wonderful events. In the last week, Uplift Local, there was a listing of that, but we have Twilight concerts, hot dog shows. Thursday night on Cal Ave, the Clay and Glass Festival is this weekend. Magical Bridge is doing something every Friday night. Movie nights, family movie nights. The MSC, our Municipal Service Center, is having an open house. If you or anybody you know ever wants to get on a bulldozer or something like that, it's a really fun event. And I hate to say it, but one of my favorite events is document shredding. I know we all have things. That's coming up in August. I don't have the date in front of me, but document shredding is coming up. So I can send out this link that was in Uplift Local, but there's a lot going on to go out, meet other community members, interface with our business community and our city staff. And I believe, I can't remember the date, the City Hall open house is also coming. Mahia, do you know the date of the City Hall open house? It's coming up too.
I do, and it is coming up. I don't know it off the top of my
You
head.
can go around the different floors, find out what people do. Last year, they did like little fun games or things if you stop by. So that's also, when is that?
Yes, each department actually showcases a little bit about what they do, services they offer. So it's a nice opportunity for the community to come out and really see what's up on each of the floors. Let me get the date real quick.
That's fine. And the Children's Library is reopening. So there is plenty to keep you in Palo Alto this summer. September 24th, Chantel just told me.
Oh, thank you, Chantal.
Wonderful. I will say that Art and Glass Festival is one of my favorite things. The level of talent of those vendors is remarkable. It's really wonderful.
And forgive me if I forgot one of my colleagues' events or a community event.
There's
Just
too
like
many.
when you start listing things, you always forget something.
All right. Any other commissioner questions, comments, announcements, or future meeting agenda items? Yes, Mayor?
Yes, just before you wrap up here, I just want to say that you all just did an amazing amount of work on the prior item. The combined chair and former chair clearly put in their own list of amazing set of hours on their own little ad hoc committee, and it showed. It showed. So the participation from this group and the preparation for the group was terrific, and I think that helped with obviously with all the staff work get the quality of comments that we had tonight that were so constructive from the community that will even add to what's already been done. So I think it was a real good evening here for the city.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for this rare July meeting. We kept